Have you ever let out a quiet sigh and thought to yourself, why can't I get anything right? You take longer than others, you're clumsier than others, you're slower to learn than others. And when these things pile up, a small hidden voice in the back of your heart begins to whisper, maybe something is wrong with me. We may be living in the most difficult era in history to feel different. At school, at work, on social media, everywhere we look, we see people who seem to have it all together. And with every glance, that feeling quietly grows. I'm not enough. I have no value. If you've ever carried that feeling, there is a story I'd like to share with you today. It happened over 2,500 years ago. A quiet yet deeply powerful encounter between the Buddha and one ordinary man. Pause. Please stay here with me for just a little while. This man had walked for days to find the Buddha, carrying nothing but the weight of his own shame. When he finally arrived, he could not even look up, his eyes fixed on the ground, as if the earth itself might judge him less harshly than the world he had left behind. And yet when the Buddha saw him, he did not turn away or offer hollow words of comfort. Instead, he asked a single question that would change everything. The story I'm about to share comes from the ancient land of India. On the outskirts of a town lived a man named Sumana. He had been born without the use of both legs. He could not walk. Each day he sat on the ground or pushed himself along on a small wooden board, moving with his hands. The people of the town called him the poor soul. When children passed by, they would stare and then run away. Even the kind-hearted would only leave a piece of bread at his feet before hurrying off. No one ever stopped to look him in the eyes. No one ever stayed to talk. Every day Sumana sat beneath a great tree at the edge of town, watching the sky, passing the hours alone. And deep inside, the same question always circled. Why was I born? With a body like this, what am I capable of? Does this world have any need for me? Then one day, the Buddha arrived in town with his disciples. People rushed toward him, a joyful crowd of voices, laughter, flowers held out in welcome. And at the far edge of that circle, Sumana sat alone in the dirt, watching from a distance. The Buddha paused. His disciples stopped too. Quietly, the Buddha walked through the crowd, toward Sumana, and gently lowered himself down, crouching to meet the man's eyes. What were you thinking about? The Buddha asked, his voice soft and unhurried. Sumana was stunned. He couldn't find words. When had anyone last looked at him this way, fully, openly, without pity? After a long moment, he finally spoke, his voice trembling. I don't know why I was born. The Buddha was quiet for a moment, holding the man's gaze. Then he said simply and gently, you are here, right now. That is enough. Just those few words. And yet they traveled all the way to the deepest part of Sumana's heart. For the first time he wept. He cried out loud like a child. But these were not tears of sorrow. They were the tears of a man whose existence, invisible to the world for so long, had finally truly been seen. In this story, the Buddha did nothing extraordinary for Sumana. He performed no miracle. He did not heal his legs. He simply walked over, crouched down, looked the man in the eyes, and listened. And yet, that was precisely what Sumana needed most. Buddhism holds a teaching called equality, the understanding that all living beings are of equal and sacred worth. In the Buddha's teaching, a person's value is not determined by the shape of their body or the level of their abilities. No matter what form we take, no matter the circumstances we are born into, no life stands above or below another. There is also the teaching of impermanence, the truth that all things are always changing. Feeling unable or not enough in this moment does not mean it will always be so. The things you cannot do, the things you can, all of it is simply one facet of who you are. The Buddha also taught that comparison itself is the root of suffering. When we measure ourselves against others, we are always placing ourselves either above or below. But that very act of measuring is what creates the pain. Sumana had been seeing himself through the lens of comparison, against those who could walk, those who could move freely. And through that lens, his life had grown smaller and smaller, thinner and thinner. What the Buddha did was gently remove that measuring stick. He stopped the comparison. He simply said, "You are here." And held within those words was a profound teaching. Your life is not something to be measured. It already carries meaning, exactly as it is. Whether or not you have a disability, there are moments when all of us feel like not enough. But through Buddhism's eyes, we are each born into this world as already enough. The feeling of falling short comes from measuring yourself with someone else's ruler. What might you see if you used your own? When Sumana looked into the Buddha's eyes that day, he saw no pity, no judgment, no invisible scale weighing his worth against the world. He saw only recognition, the simple acknowledgement that he was there, that his life mattered, that his presence itself was complete. In that moment, the measuring stick shattered, and for the first time in years, Sumana could breathe. So how might we bring this teaching into the quiet moments of our own lives? Awareness around disability has slowly been growing in our time, and yet deep beneath the surface, there are still unconscious assumptions that people with disabilities are to be pitied, that they must be helped, that they are somehow lesser. These ideas linger without our even noticing. If someone in your life lives with a disability, or if you yourself carry some form of limitation or difference, try beginning the way the Buddha did with Sumana. Simply meet their eyes, simply listen. You don't need to do something, you don't need to be useful. Pity, however well-meaning, quietly builds a wall between two people. But when we meet someone at the same level, eye to eye without hierarchy, something else becomes possible. A real connection between two human beings. This is what Buddhism calls compassion, not looking down upon someone's pain, but sitting beside it. And if you yourself are struggling, if you find yourself asking, "Why am I like this?" about your own body or mind, try whispering these words gently to yourself. I am here today. That is enough. Words like these work slowly, seeping into the heart over time. You don't have to believe them right away. It's all right if you don't. Simply say them anyway. That is enough. For those raising children, this perspective matters deeply. Whether your child has a disability or not, when they fall behind, when they struggle where others seem to glide, it is natural for a parent's heart to tighten with worry. But the Buddha taught that every life blooms at its own pace. You don't need to rush them. You don't need to compare them. Simply sit beside them. Look into their eyes. That is the most profound gift a parent can give. And when our own bodies begin to slow, when illness or age takes what we once could do, many of us begin to blame ourselves for being useless. But consider this, a newborn baby cannot do anything at all, and yet their mere presence fills the people around them with joy. The worth of a life has never been measured in what it can accomplish. Even if there are things you can no longer do, you are still here, and that, your being here, is a quiet strength for someone, a quiet prayer for someone. The very fact that you are alive holds a meaning in this world that nothing else can replace. There is just one thing I'd like to leave with you today. Your life is not precious because of what you can do. It does not gain its value from what you have achieved. Simply being here, in this one thing, your life is already full. Just as the Buddha crouched down to meet Sumana's eyes, I too want to meet yours, fully, as you reach the end of this story today. You don't need to blame yourself. You don't need to compare yourself. You are here today. You stayed. That is enough. Pause. May these words rest quietly somewhere in your heart. Thank you so much for listening today. A woman once asked me after practice, "But what if I forget this tomorrow?" I told her, "You will forget, and that is not a failure. The forgetting itself is part of the practice. Each time you remember again, you are choosing presence anew. This choice, made again and again across all your ordinary days, is where a life becomes sacred.